Hey there lovely people, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video because today your girl is gonna make something completely on her own. If you've seen my previous videos, you know that I have only followed tutorials so far. And today I'm gonna take something all the way from inspiration, the idea, all the way to execution without following any tutorials. This personally is a huge step forward for me because I feel like I'm developing skills to actually make something from scratch. It's super exciting. Also, Valentine's Day is coming up. I don't really have anywhere to go on Valentine's Day, let's be honest. None of us have anywhere to go on this Valentine's Day because of the pandemic. But still, we can still wear nice clothes and look nice, right? And so I decided to make a Valentine's dress. I have been obsessed with structured skirts with a lot of volume lately. And then I wanted to do a draped bodice because I've been meaning to drape a bodice on my own for a very long time. And I thought, now's the chance. And I decided to use the same fabric from the skirt that I made in the last video because I had a lot of it left over and I didn't want to waste it because we don't like to waste on this channel. And so I decided to just use the same fabric and make a white dress. And I decided to add red satin straps. I thought that would be a super romantic and cute touch for Valentine's Day. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's get started. I started by draping the bodice. I don't have a dress form, so I decided to drape it on myself and ended up stabbing myself a million times with the pins. If you decide to drape on yourself as well, please be extra careful with the pins. I used this muslin fabric I got off of Amazon for draping. I only draped on the left half of my body because we are going to fold the fabric and cut it on the fold so that it's perfectly symmetrical on both the sides. I pinned the center style line, then I pinned the side seam, and finally I pinned the excess fabric on the princess style line. Then I roughly drew around the excess and also where I wanted the top edge and the waistline to be. Next, I take the fabric off of myself, cut the fabric pieces along the lines I drew, and transfer the pieces to paper, smoothing out the lines and curves that I drew. I did the same thing for the back. It's a bit harder to do it for the back by yourself. If you have a friend, ask them for help. Then I add a 1/4 inch seam allowance and a 1/2 inch hem allowance and make a toil to test the pattern. The toil turned out great, and then I cut out the actual fabric pieces and sewed them together. Be sure to iron all of your seams nice and open. Then I hemmed the top edge by folding it over twice and sewing it in place. So our bodice is done. Let's move on to the skirt. The skirt is just going to be a rectangle. In order to calculate the dimensions of this rectangle, we are going to measure our waist circumference and multiply it by 3 since we are going to gather the top edge of the skirt. For me, this came out to 86 inches. The width of the rectangle is just going to be the length of the skirt you want with added hem allowance and seam allowance. In my case, that turned out to be 18.5 inches. So we cut out the rectangle. Now, since we want our skirt to have lots of structure and volume, it's ideal to use a stiff fabric for it that holds its shape. However, I'm just reusing the leftover fabric from my last project, and this fabric is not very stiff. So I'm going to add a layer of fusible interfacing to the fabric to give it some stiffness. The interfacing takes quite a bit of time and patience to iron onto the long rectangular piece of fabric. So put on some music and be patient with it because we want that interfacing to be ironed on and fused together with the fabric really nicely. After this, we are going to gather the top edge of the skirt. In order to gather the top edge, set the stitch length on your machine to the longest you possibly can and sew in a straight line along the top edge. Don't do the reverse stitches in the beginning and the end because we want to be able to pull on the threads to do the gathers. Now pull on one of the threads on one end and carefully keep pulling and pushing the gathers along the edge until you get to the other end. After gathering the top edge, we basically have to pin it to the bodice, right sides together. While pinning to the bodice, make sure that you spread out the gathers evenly. Once that is done, sew the bodice and the skirt together.
While sewing, make sure that the gathers are facing upwards so that you can keep an eye on them and make sure that they get sewn at an angle of 90 degrees to the bodice. After this, I closed the back seam and added an invisible zipper. And then I hemmed the bottom edge of the skirt. With this, we are on to the final step of the dress, the straps. For straps, I'm using a red satin fabric because I wanted to add a pop of color to this white dress. We need to make 4 straps in total, 2 on each side so we can tie them up into a bow on the shoulder. And we need to cut out 2 pieces of fabric for every strap. So we need to cut out 8 pieces of fabric in total. I wanted my straps to be about 20 inches long and I wanted them to be 1 inch wide on one end and 2 inches wide on the other. So I drew the shape on paper, added a 1/4 inch for seam allowance, and cut out 8 identical pieces from my red fabric. Then I sewed them right sides together on 3 of the 4 edges and used the open edge to flip them inside out. Once you have flipped them inside out, be sure to iron all the edges nice and flat. Once I was done making all 4 of the straps, I pinned them to the dress and tried it on. Once I was happy with their positioning on the dress, I pinned the open edge of the straps to the inside of the top edge and sewed them to the dress by stitching along the hemline. And that completes the dress. Let me go put it on and show you all how it looks.
So this is how my Valentine's dress turned out. I'm super happy with it because this is the first time ever that I've made a dress completely on my own without following any tutorials, and I'm super stoked about it because I think it's super cute and super fun and super romantic for Valentine's Day. Let me know what you thought. If you liked it as well, hit that like button and leave a heart in the comments and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!